Welcome back to the HIGHké Lifestyle, a bi-weekly podcast about hemp, life energy, vibrations, and balancing the ether and the physical. I'm your host, Clifford.
And I'm Shari-Joy.
Welcome back.
Hey, what's up?
So, how's the week been flowing for you?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
That's
Well,
good.
choosing not to. Choosing not to.
There we go. We can always complain, right? There's always
Yeah,
something to complain
I
about.
always
But
check myself when I say that. I'm like, wait a
right,
minute. I can complain.
what
I'm
would you
choosing not
complain
to.
about now if you could?
If I could complain about now. I would complain about not being able to wake up people. That's the biggest complaint I have.
Okay.
That's it. So since I can't complain about that, I'm not going to be worried about it.
All right. So you don't have to
Biggest complaint.
complain. We can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
What's the frustrating part about not being able to wake people up?
People take information as if it's like they take it so personal. They're very sensitive.
You don't think they
And
should be?
no, I think it's very human to be sensitive to
Okay.
information that's coming because that way you have an idea of how where you stand in accepting the things that are probably daunting or hurtful or make you emotional.
Right.
But that's the thing where I wish I don't have the where I wish I had. Mm, no, I don't wish that. I have patience. What I wish I could do faster, though, in regards to complaining, is to be able to wipe that kind of clean in people's consciousness to be like, there's nothing that you need to worry about in being emotional or being scared or being angry. It won't. It won't. It won't assist humanity in the long run if we stay lingering with the emotions. So
Right.
that kind of adds on to the frustration of me not wanting to complain so much because I know it'll come off misconstrued or I might not be accepted in the moments that I want to be really accepted for the messages that I want to resonate with if I complain so damn much all the time. So
So how do you
yeah.
transition the complaint? Like what do you transition the would be the complaint, right? What do you transition it into to still deliver
Sass.
the message?
Sass.
Science, sass.
Sass.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you think that the
Sass and a
sass
little bit
is
of
better than
comedy.
complaining?
And comedy. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Sass and comedy. I think that ties in really well to what I wanted to talk about a little bit was the meme war thing because meme
Right.
war is all about trying to capture a miniature of sass, a miniature of comedy into a big bubble of what the fuck is going on. Here in a little bit of a picture, a couple of words added on there. Do you get it? Do you not? Click yes, click no. Share if you want to. Meme war. It's like I get it. I'm angry. I'm angry with everyone, every other soldier who's making these memes for or against. I don't know. I don't know these soldiers individually, but I know the war at hand, and that's where I'm like trying to, not trying. I am. Keep saying this. I am patient, but when I have to complain, those are the things that I'm not patient about that I wish I could just do like that. Like,
Right.
get rid of it.
I mean,
Let's get rid of it.
I feel like memes have become they've developed. I think they initially were like low effort comedy, but now there's a lot more creativity behind it because a lot more people are kind of involved, and everyone's kind of doing their creative thing to go viral. So they've kind of replaced comedy. I feel like nowadays, like it's also part of people's short attention span, where they don't have the ability to commit to a whole trite and dialogue with a punchline. It's just like give me comedy, give me something funny to look at, give me someone to dislike, and it's done. I mean, I've learned everything I needed to in like 5 seconds, right? And it's
Yeah, I
also, I mean,
mean,
some of them are cool. Some of them are cool because you have to
mm-hmm.
figure it out. Like sometimes I see something, I'm like, I don't get it. It could be because it's corny and it's very low effort, but it could just be, I need to elevate my own thinking to understand a bit better.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the scavenger hunt of what the best way I can say it is the way I love it, the way I understand it, and the way like it rocks my boat is knowing the things that I know intuitively and seeing how they're unfolding and collectively with people and bringing out these meme war memes and me being like, okay, that's how I gauge where the society is at during this
Right,
time. This is
right,
like, oh, okay, we're on this topic right now. Got you, got you. Like
right, right.
I've been on this transition for a minute now to be able to be part of the wave to see, oh, okay, we've cracked that open. Now the humanity is thinking because that meme came out. maybe we have hope. We can maybe we can ascend. Maybe we get something unlocked in consciousness and whatever the fuck it means, without having to be so sensitive to individuals, and more respecting and compassionate, and have more empathy about all the triggering effects to this informational war that we're in right now. And that's just
What was the last meme that you saw that you really connected with?
oh, I would have to look that up because I know where it is. Hold on.
It's all good.
Let me see if I can.
I don't know. I'm not really a meme person. I don't care. I guess. I guess part of me is it's because part of me is still stuck in the desire for the long form content. I appreciate the art that takes time and dedication, but you know, I know the value of memes, and sometimes they catch me. But overall, I'm just like,
I get
I'm
it.
okay.
I totally understand. The thing is, it's funny because when you mentioned it the first time, I was gonna say it's funny because last episode we talked about how you were saying that you like content. You know, you're gonna tear a person down. You're gonna sit them down, and you're gonna be
I
long
ain't say it like
drawn out.
that. I'm joking.
Yeah, you did. You did.
I didn't say it like that. I said I like
Long drawn
long
out
drawn out. I didn't say
conversation.
I'm gonna sit you down. You can sit if
Okay.
you want. You can stand.
You're
You
right.
can do
Oh
whatever
Lord,
you
I
want.
see. I see. Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
I forgot this new episode. People, different ears. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Did not say it like that. But the premise is, of course, you have the liberty to do sit down and stand, whatever. But your energy would make somebody choose whether they're going to stand up and sit down to hear out your long, detailed content of the conversation. And I think that's what's so cool about us being who we are at the end of the day, and at the same time respecting the content that is long and drawn out, or whatever that means for detail, because I'm the same way. I'm a writer. I'm better with conveying my point across with harmony in written words than I am communicatively in conversation, but I still carry
Right.
myself of some value when I have conversation, I think. But my ultimate power is written words. So I totally understand the concept of being a writer and having more depth in using words. And that's how I also then honor the cleverness of memes, if one gets it and one
Right.
understands. But I think the only way people understand memes is if you've done the research. That's really what memes are about. If it flies over your head, then it's because someone somewhere somehow didn't do independent something at one point to understand that picture was just a small little picture to highlight a million words of a situation, of a scenario that's going on in the today's modern society.
Right. What percentage of people do you think do their own research on any given thing? Do you think people? I mean, I feel like collectively we can agree, right, that people are less informed outside of what they're told. But if you could give a number, what number would it be?
Wow, I would say less than 50%.
Okay, I even less than 50%. Like
I'm giving you a
anywhere
chance.
between that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a big gauge, right?
Yeah,
Like
the
give me like
reason
a
why I say that
plus
though
or
is
minus
because reality.
5%. Right,
The
right, right,
reality though, because everyone's on their phone. I know everyone's looking at something. I know everyone's researching something at some given time, pointed some way or another. If you're in social media, if you have an account in social media, you're looking up something. You either
right.
nosy off of somebody else, you're actually looking either hashtags or not. You're looking for the news or not. There's something that you're looking for. It's just about your interest level.
Right.
Whatever you're interested in. Whatever you're interested in is where you're going to be an expert on. And this is the thing, like, what are you going to be an expert on? Are you going to chime in a conversation and admit that you don't know anything about? And to me, that would be still open-minded conversation, because you're allowing somebody who may have more information to awaken your interest, to see if that's something that you will honor with yourself and the act of humanity. I would use that parallel in this moment and say, hey, are you going to do some independent research, knowing that the information that you were given might be a lot for you, and a lot
Right.
for you to understand and concept, and how are you going to become grounded with this thought, right? It takes
Right.
independent research. I
Right.
like to
So
assume that less than 40% of the population does independent research based on whatever their ego is trying to help them
okay.
find.
So as a collective, less than 40% does
Yeah,
general research.
less than
All right.
40.
So relative to let's say like choose a topic, choose a hotbed topic right now that interests you. that there are conflicting perspectives about?
Oh, what the vaccination. Vaccination
Okay.
is
So
definitely.
what percentage of people do you think have done their own research when it comes to vaccination?
Ooh, for those, first something that came to my head was 85%.
85% of the US population has done their research on vaccination.
Oh, has done a research. No,
Yeah, it
no,
has.
no. Sorry, no, no, no. Has done a research on the vaccination. I would do. Yeah, again, less than 40%.
Why wouldn't it be 15 if 85? If you if you thought the question was the other way, why wouldn't it be 15?
Because I don't know what the sole premise is as to why someone doesn't engage in breaking free of their own chains. I don't
Right,
know
right.
their emotional problems, so that's why I can't do it that way. I have honor and room left. I have room for honoring the space as to why someone might not know. I have space to honor why someone refuses to give a shit. Like, I have space to honor whatever trajectory it is, and for me, it's a higher percentage than the 15 and the 85.
I don't. I'm not following. Could you
Okay.
initially you said that that 40% of people. What was it? 40% of people do their own research. What was the question? Was it? I forget exactly.
That don't do their own research. I said less than
No, no.
50%.
Actually, yeah. Let's do their research. I think that's what it was. So less than 50% or 40% do the actual research, but and that's just like generally speaking. But on specific topics, you can't provide a statistic because it's too specific. Uh,
Well,
uh,
one, I'm not an expert on statistics.
no, it's not
And
about being an
I
expert. Like
know.
it's
That's what,
just
but
like what you.
that's what I'm saying. My mind feels challenged in answering that question in numerical
Okay.
terms because I can't, I'm a person that does need data in order to have conviction with what it is I want to theorize on what it is that I know.
Right.
So I know
That's
that
the
less than
thought. But
40,
what do you feel? What do you feel? What's this initial what number just pops up initially? What do you feel? Not what you know.
that people haven't done the research is less than 40% of
Okay.
the vaccinations. It's not it I don't
Okay.
even though it seems like maybe a high number and it's not a 15%, then maybe it could actually be, is because I'm giving room for those individuals who have been vaccinated who still don't know why they got vaccinated, and then they're going to wake up and realize, oh shit, I got vaccinated and it probably wasn't the smartest thing for me to do. Does that make sense?
Now I understand that, but I don't feel like that's the question.
I get
That's
it.
the specific question.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. All
What would
right.
be your
So,
answer?
what percentage of people do I think do their own independent research?
Mm-hmm.
Collectively, maybe like 60%. I feel like people are more informed buyers nowadays. We look the reviews. We Google things, we Google information. So that within itself is a form of research. Specifically for like vaccination, um, I'll go with 15%. I mean, I think it's like the 80% or like the deaf, dumb, and the blind. That's kind of been the phrase that people say a lot. And I compare the subreddits I'm in. Like I'm in one called No New Normal, and it's just opposing the idea of the new normal that's been sold these past few years, or past year mostly. And it's like maybe 70,000. I don't have my phone, damn it. But I compare that to like a pro vaccination or pro what COVID or whatever pro is going on government
Mm-hmm.
subreddit that has like hundreds of thousands, and comparing those numbers, like I see the minority and I see the big difference, and I see the upvotes and I see what's being sold. So I mean, yeah, that for me, I'd go with 15. And granted, I know that there's bots and all these other influences, but the language and the conversation being banned from other subreddits kind of tells me that that number feels right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, for that, I definitely would say you would have a more run up because I'm not engaged in that type of world. I'm not in the subreddits of anything to have more context. Who's really in the community of thousands to be able to have more actuality, to see, what the dialogue is with base that challenges maybe my perspective or my point of view.
Right.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So we ended up a bit left. We were talking about meme wars.
Mm-hmm.
And you were looking something up actually, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
your most favorite recent meme, I
it
believe.
was just yeah, it was just one that I posted today. It triggered me. It was like me in my 30s trying to convince myself that I'm still punk rock.
Oh, I think I
Right.
saw that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the.
and it's like a guy going through the line and says "fuck the system," and like that's kind of like, huh, I like that. It's because it's like it was like an epiphany for me to understand why I'm in my 30s and still trying to hold on to, I think, what previous generations have considered maybe anarchy at their time through their generation, and
Right.
just kind of maintaining that that momentum. Now hitting being in the 30s now, in my early 30s, it's like, oh, yes, fuck with that.
What do you think our modern day anarchy is?
Understanding sovereignty.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think many of us really understand what sovereignty could really mean. And in and of itself, like trying to explain it comes across, I feel, to many people's consciousness as an act of sovereignty because it takes a form of rebellion. And it's not.
Right.
It's you're just standing on, you're affirming what it is that you believe in. And when you connect that in a collective term, I think it's a movement. And I'm down for that.
I like that. I like that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah, me more, man. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that that would be in the history of thousands of years from now. How society started with using technology and turned it into memes.
right. Right. I mean, what was the? I feel like there's a story somewhere that I read or maybe heard that the first like newspaper printed or first one of like the first things printed was a guy like blasting his wife or something. I forgot what it was exactly. Um,
Really, that was news. That's like the first thing printed. That's amazing. Wow, that's controversial.
I don't even know how to Google it. I gotta think about it. I feel like maybe I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast, and he was like, one of the first things the guy printed was just him like shitting on his wife. Um, and maybe that was the modern meme, right? That was the relative meme they had, just talking shit in the newspaper. That was it.
Wow, wow, yeah. I don't even. Wow, I don't even have words for that right now. Do with that. I mean, it's freedom of speech, right? Shit. What do you? What the fuck? Damn. Damn. What was I gonna say? It's just it's so interesting how, because it kind of takes the whole concept of meme war is very interesting on how we quickly take on information of interest or not,
Right,
right? And usually it's with a lot of art expression involved is when we get multiple senses triggered at one time, and a controversial picture is speaks so much words, that so many more words than controversial words. If you throw
right,
a picture in there, it's like, oh, that's left for opinions and projections and interpretation beyond the imagination. But you got some words, they're a little bit more finite. So I think it's pretty clever when you come across a meme that is just triggering the psychology of the human mind that makes you like, maybe at first it's very uncomfortable. It's very, very fucking uncomfortable. Like, wait a minute, yeah, it's a little off-putting, and then you start thinking and like, oh, I get it. And that's the premise of why I enjoy the political climate of meme wars. It's ingenious for its time.
do you mostly look at political? I mean, I know you said political climate, but are most of your memes political based? Or they, or I mean, I guess
For
I'd
me,
say
for
they're
my
mostly
interest, yeah.
related to your personal interests. So
Yeah,
memes and like spirituality and
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Those are then more the category of memes I chase. Like, oh, that's
Any
clever.
any off color topic memes that you like randomly enjoy?
Not that I've that come to mind at the moment.
All right.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. How about you? Because I know the first when I brought it up, you weren't really aware of the meme war the concept of it, I guess.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
what was it that you didn't know? Because
I mean,
once I shared it with you, you understood.
yeah, I never heard the phrase before. I didn't. Uh, I think I was kind of thinking about this yesterday, and just thinking about the word war and how we just kind of use language to minimize the. Actually, I was thinking of civil war, and I'll connect this back. Civil war, thinking about this oxymoron. War can't be civil. The whole point of war is like death and destruction in some type of capacity. So I think you brought up me more. I was also thinking about, again, like the conditioning in terms of how we minimize the concept of war and what it really means, and to just words and pictures which have their value and benefit, but what they're related to, it allows us to kind of diminish our perspective on like real war. um so yeah, I never heard about, never even crossed my mind, and it was weird because I'm on Reddit a lot, so never even hearing about that, it was shocking, I guess. And looking back, I see it. Like, I see response. Like, I look back and think of like memes I've seen where there's responses or comments that, oh, like, okay, I guess that was, it's like a little versus battle going back and forth at each other with different things. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I don't.
Yeah, there was.
Like I say, I don't see. I guess I get it. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it ends up just being another thing where it's just more of psyop and psychological warfare, like to your point about how it really affects the brain versus invoking actual physical change or movement or growth, or
Ooh,
and, maybe it does down the line.
yeah, I
But
don't know if I
I
would
think
agree to that point.
we're we're imbalanced enough where we're already enjoying pictures and words online, so something else
Mm.
kind of has to give. And that's me, being a fun police. Like, we like, we can laugh all day, but like, let's do some other stuff. Let's do some work.
I get it. I get it. I get it. I totally have respect for that, and I understand. I I see it in the reason why I think it's ingenious, because that ties into that, is what I find so interesting in you bringing up the word civil war, because how do you reach collective commonality? And I think ultimately it's to kind of persuade everyone that they're accepted for whatever it is that they have once done or forgiven, or can change. They can, like, whatever it is that they can surrender into, which maybe could come off as a metaphor of creating a safety net. And the safety net allows individuals, us as a common people, to express ourselves with certain ideas. And this is where I think it's a great concept to accept this ideology of meme war, because how do you again reach commonality? And ultimately the quest, I think, that will be each customizable for us is, again, creating a customized healing mechanism that allows us to accept that we all have a safety net that we belong to. And but you can't trigger that with everyone all the damn time, because you can't connect to everyone simultaneously all at once. If that's the case, I think it would be more easier, I think, perhaps. um, but since this is the beginning stage of the evolution of our modern world for the future, I think we have a great foundation to set upon ourselves for the degree of influence we can put moving forward. And since we are in this political climate that I brought up, which is, the meme war, it's understanding what you addressed, that the concept of war has been vilified as of destruction and chaos. And ultimately, yeah, it's what our history represents itself to be, that's what it is. But if we take the philosophy of what it means to change something, it is destructive. And we've been philosophized with the word war. So taking meme war as a concept of triggering people's psychology, to get the mental going, to get the mental triggered and hijack and hack, that there are not everything that is repetitive in our brain is necessary for to be in our continuous cycle of thought, as in fear, as in whatever. So I think it's a very ingenious way to take the, and in my case, it would be more the beliefs that I stand upon, um, and know of the world problems, and be able to induce the breadcrumbs of possibility in memes to give a safety net to individuals in this social war of of technology, a chance for people to say, "Hey, you're not alone." Because if it takes a fucking picture for you to say, one, you get comedic relief, or you get like, "Oh, that's what that shit was," or anything
Right.
that kind of subjectificates your understanding to your brain and your mental during the time of what you know, what you don't know. It still triggers something within us individually to either decide that we either give a shit about it or we don't, and that's how we can negate sovereignty. That's how going and preaching sovereignty in this time is a basic way of finding a parallelism to the meme war being a civil war, because the individual interpretation of what a meme could be, or the information that's thrown at us, whether it's bot or not bot, is still causing us to think about what it is that we think about was based on our beliefs. And I think it's very ingenious to make it that individualistic, and it's very chaotic and destructive for sure. But it's absolutely needed to get humanity on an individual term, in my opinion, individualistically in people's hands. When you get it, when you see it in your phone, that's a chance for us to all act and be independent soldiers. I think this
Right.
is pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see the positive side to it. And I'll jump back to the percentages of what people, in terms of going back to like research and ideas of the majority of people who just kind of flow with the system, which is the frustration that the minority has, because it affects their lives, right? The 85% are imposing my beliefs and my views and my life. So, and I live in their society, so naturally I have to kind of conform. But the issue, I think, not even issue. I guess the other perspective I'm showing or trying to share is that it's still limiting, because within the fun comedic relief, the majority of it is, I think the majority of it is, how do I phrase this? The majority of it caters to the 85% at the end of the day, and I think that's part of the problem, right? They're gonna see it, they're gonna laugh. The majority of memes are, I feel like, are just comic relief. I don't, and again, this could be, I mean, this is a wild assumption. I don't think the majority of memes invoke change through people, right? They're the relative, again, like they're what's relative comedy. They're the relative print and press. They're relevant news. People, you're getting your news from a 4x4 image. Uh, and I think once something is widespread and once everyone is using it, that for me it means that it serves no true purpose anymore, right? The potential it could have been in terms of guiding people and being the content that you in the space that you enjoy, right? Like we watch what's relevant to us, and for me and you, we geared more towards comic, positive, and uplighting content. But the majority of the memes, like if we're talking about war in terms of memes that are uplifting and positive versus memes that are just there to exist to make people laugh. If we're talking about war, the 85% are winning, because that's what the majority is going to be catered to, because they're the majority. Um, and it goes back to just enjoying the content, consuming the content, but knowing that the majority of people who will consume the content won't take the next steps regarding what they've learned, what what the content, how the content makes them feel, what it unlocks down the line. I feel like most people just kind of stay stuck in what they've been doing. So without the growth, without the potential, um, I think, again, going back to make it being a war, or I mean, yeah, even use an idea that it's a war. It's a war that's being lost on one aspect, but it's also just another new way to limit people just mentally. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem for it, and it always goes back to, you know, how do you break through, right? How do you, like you said earlier, how do you pull people through the confusion, the abyss of not knowing? Like, how do you wake people up? And like that's something that whoever is using to kind of make the war even more difficult, right?
Interesting. Well, you're limited sometimes in war to use the same and to use the tactics. Okay, so basically, all right, how can I say this? What's limiting about war is when you don't know the motives or the moves of the person or thing that you're going to war with. You're trying to kind of like anticipate, it's like playing a game of chess. You can know all the individual pieces of the moves that every piece of the game does or is accountable to. With how the knight moves, how the pawn moves, the whole to protect the king. And then, but the game of chess is basically the act of war. You can anticipate the possible strategy by trying to foresee the possible move, but there are times during the journey of fighting the war you'll lose some pieces, and you lose some power maybe to your to front line. And I think that's the premise of understanding why sometimes or oftentimes it's necessary to figure out what it is or what has been done to try to foresee an outcome that you do not know, but based on a certain pattern you can maybe get closer in drawing a assumption that is more leaning in favor of the set theory, the set hypothesis. So to keep that in mind for how, yeah, it can be very limiting to see the weaponry as meme war as the weapon of choice. But again, based just to stick on my point here about how do you make somebody accountable, it's usually always um, nature versus knowing that you can nurture and discipline something. As a mentor, I think you can understand when it's really good and fortifying for yourself and the person that you may be mentoring to give positive affirmations, but
Right.
also to be able to polish wherever there may be needed discipline or to maybe trigger an idea that discipline is required. Now, whatever it is that you're assisting in that moment is what I'm trying to exemplify what a meme could anticipating be in this situation, where it is obviously not every meme is conditioned and designed for every liking. Not every meme and every is conditioned to be comedic. Not every meme is smart and intelligent. Not every meme is clean. There's some, there's different things in a category of what it means to play this war, meme war. And but that's again going to my point. Like sometimes you have to. How do you fight the system when the system has been designed in the way that it's been to create where we are now? And accepting where we are now in society is to have respect where however we landed here. Is to accept all the bullshit from yesterday and before to accept why we're sitting here in this moment. I have to accept it. I have to forgive it some way or another because without it, I wouldn't be in this moment with you. And that's where I would like to shine more. That's where I have the holy grail of faith, of knowing that, okay, we have a meme war. And war is triggering because war means death and destruction. True. Can we always convince people with memes and the intellect? No. Will it be achieving that people will run into now being more activated and motivated to do something? No. However, I think it is a great tactic to fight against the technological difficulties that the people who are fighting through the system are trying to get more soldiers to wake up in this case. Because there's a lot of censorship is what I'm trying to highlight here too. There's a lot of wording that you cannot say because you will be deleted on the platform. There's a lot of things going against the grail where you have to be smarter to hack the system, with the same modality. And
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is like why I'm like, I totally agree with you, but it's still a very ingenious way to see how this affects maybe society in 50 years time, just in the concept of what it means now.
So I'm glad you used the word. It's a smarter way. And I'll bring back your chess analogy and talking about the system. If I create the game of chess and I invite you to play, right? I naturally have the upper hand. So, we're birthed into these systems, and the systems are controlled by the people who create the system. So I can't use the tools the system provides me to overtake the system, right? If I'm playing chess and I'm playing against the creator, it's difficult to to defeat the origin source, defeat the person who created whatever the concept is. But if it's, I mean, we see it's a matter of life and death. It's a matter of human potential. The it's a matter of the soul, right? It's a matter of the universe. It's a matter about the consciousness and going back to the word potential, what it means. So I'm challenging the idea of calling it a war, and because it minimizes what war really is. It makes war easy, right? Picture war, and it's fine. And I said, 100% agree with all your points, and I see the potential for it. But I also think because it's built within the system, and going back to, since the majority of people use it, the majority of consumption is worthless, right? The majority of things that Americans consume is worthless, right? It's not healthy for them. It's not beneficial for them. It's just there for them to engage and just fulfill their role on the wheel. So me wanting to utilize a meme as a way to inspire, yeah, but it has its limit, right? Again, going back to you brought up the idea of censorship. They create the platform, and now they tell me I can't say what I want on their platform. So what do I do? Do I just work again on their platform, or do I work toward, find a different outlet or different space to kind of share these concepts because I'm being muted or censored on a platform? Censored in life, right? Like, uh, for me, I'm thinking about, like, what else is there, right? And that's everything, right? I'm always gonna see the limit in something and look for, okay, what's the bigger picture? What can we do with this? If we're saying that this is war, if we're saying that this is psychological warfare, how do people who want to inspire and want to going back to like anarchy, right? Who want to dismantle shit, how do you utilize it in a more beneficial way? Like, what's the next step, right? It's already on average. The average person's already consuming it. They're making their own memes, so they're the 85%. I'll just stick with that stat. They're producing more content than you, and more people are going to enjoy their content because it's for that larger group of people. So technically, the goal of kind of pushing forward and learning and inspiring or finding good relief in it, it's always going to be limiting, I think. And for me, I think that's part of it. And using the word war, I think, is really what I guess kind of led us into this. Like, it's if it's talking about war, saying that this piece of information is a psychological warfare, then we're losing. We shouldn't be okay with it, right? We shouldn't be okay with it.
I agree. I agree for the point. My soul, however, I'm calming right now and grounding because of my lingering personal anger and frustration to what is going on with the reality that we are both taking up space in right now in our life, in our lifetime. So the reason why I say I'm angry is because I think, I mean, I've shared many points, I think, where people can maybe understand why I'm, what my fight is, what my soul mission is, which
Right.
is trying as best as possible to fight for this authenticity that is a very complex nationality. And um, I'm I am I carry the frustrations for those I've met in my lifetime, those I made cross paths with, that I think still have some hope or inquisition, or have felt alone and depressed and isolated around this idea of what humanity ought to be, based on their soul calling them for this truth, and not feeling accepted by society for whatever expression towards that truth is that's burning inside them. And that's why I ground myself in knowing that mentality that I bestow, and that where I'm always challenged myself and will be challenged for I don't know how long, will be to remain grounded in this anger, and to find measurements that offer solutions towards truth and progression that leads to peace and serenity, which for me is the whole fucking package of what sovereignty ought to be. So the reason why I go in this lengthy explanation is to say that due to my warrior mentality, where I know people can resonate with feeling my energy of, oh, okay, she's passionate about that shit, is that warrior energy where I know that in order to get things done, it is chaos and destruction. It is not painting everything holy, braille, and beautiful in a time where it's not a holy grail and beautiful beauty everywhere you see. And that's the whole fucking challenge, I think, that I see if I accept the confusion that is masked in all of us right now. That is my plea towards that. What I'm holding on to is knowing that that fight to where we'd like to go, that fantasyism, that imagination of whatever that beautiful thing is, will cause a form of destruction getting to that place, because we're not in a place right now where we have this peace. We haven't been, our history hasn't been this way, that it's been peaceful. It has been through the construction of war that has imbalanced certain ideas that make us still yet hungry for the future of some kind of peace, but has left us with dealing with the shit that we don't know, or trying to make know, or try to understand all this mess in the present moment. And that's where I remain so adamant to take my anger that I do have, and my sadness that I do have, and find a measure of groundedness to speak my passions across, so that people can understand my energy of how I feel with what I choose to say, and every other decision previous or moving forward. And that's why, to tie it all in, why I find it ingenious mean more thing, because it is destructive. I have to, as a healer, I'm not going to appease you by coddling you all the time. There will be a destructive thing that will happen. And I want to provide a safety netting that you can try and trust me when the destruction happens. And that's, I think, I mean, I can only fucking imagine that world where we understand that chaos within us, that is emotional, anger, sadness, all this destruction, can come with a safety net of people that we can trust. Because in a moment of my bad time last year, you were that person.
Right.
You were that one person in a fraction of a tiny thing, but it made something make sense in that moment for us to be here now, a year later. I'm fortunate for it to be a year later. Yeah, I'm fortunate where other people are in a different timeline. I don't know their individual journey. But what I'm trying to highlight with my journey is the conviction that I know the truth that is out there as best as I do know. And that is my anger and frustration that I try to ground and turn it into passion, and to still accept that war is a game played of knowing that with birth comes death, and death is not something to be afraid of at the end of the day. And that's just to honor what I believe in, and with energy and the way the universe works.
All right. I mean, I hope I'm not coming across as like dismissing your
Oh,
perspective
oh.
and your beliefs. Okay.
I just got passionate.
Okay. um,
It's 31 years of shit going on in my passion. It has nothing to do with you. I didn't take it personal. No
got it.
worries.
All right. Good to know. So like, you brought up the past and the past years and the past wars. Going back to, and again, I guess this is just my, I'm harboring on it now, right? I'm harboring on it now, like because for me, and I guess maybe this is my perspective, right? Totally. I mean, yeah, the chaos, war, change, growth, and all that is important. But I think about the type of war we're in, right, is based on philosophy, right? It's based on the mind. And if you're able to gain dominion over someone's mind, then you have control over their body. And we see that in the response to, what people are willing to do for a donut, for a chance at a lottery, free joints, whatever, right? Right. It's there's a level of mind control, and that's the fear. And I believe in the potential. I believe in the potential. Like these past few, past like few 6 months plus, I've really been honing on the idea of potential and the human potential and the importance of work and importance of work. Um, so, and part of this is kind of related in me watching TV shows. I'll go with like Battlestar Galactica, which is like one of the top nerd sci-fi shows. But it's a great show because it goes through all of the, at least for me, all the levels of like being human. There's philosophy in it. There's religion. There's love. There's discovery. All the raw emotions. I feel like every character and every episode invokes in you. Um, so I believe in the potential. I believe that if there's a rocket ship or a spaceship out in the world, and it's just like that's just it. The humans will keep working to move forward to find a new civilization so that we can move on. But I think losing this mental war, and maybe that's really part of why I'm honing on it, the meme war, and I think you brought up the word psych, and it's part of your psych. Losing this present war, it's going to set us back. It's going to set us back mad fucking long. And I think that that's part of the concern and the worry, right? You can even with Dr. Fauci's emails being, the report that he had previous knowledge and he was saying that masks didn't work. You present the idea and people are so gone mentally and so in tuned to whatever they've been conditioned to believe that it's just like, so that's not real. Like they're still finding a way to deny it. And for me, that's the majority. That's the majority. And them having that monolithic thinking, but also monolithic control over how I plan to interact in society in the future, it worries me. I'm thinking about the limitations. Like, what if every country in the world requires you to get vaccinated? Like, guess I ain't going nowhere, right? Like, I'm not going. I'm good. I mean, I'm good with that, but that's just what it might be. Um, so the mental war, I think, is the most important war, right? Because like on one level, if humans push forward and the 15% gradually starts pulling on a 20%, 25, and gradually the numbers increase and more people become more aware, then yeah, absolutely, things will get better. Things will, um, the potential for what this life experience could be will finally be manifested, I guess, for a lot more people. But they take your body, they take your mind. The next level is spiritual warfare, right? They break. Certain things are meant to break your spirit, right? Like slavery was meant to break Africans and African Americans' spirit, and we see a lot of you see the long term effects and conditions of that mentally, physically, right? The physically is the good. Black people are great at sports. The mentally is the self hatred, the desire for assimilation in a world in a country or societies that don't really fuck with you. And this is ebb and flow. I've said before that I think the black experience has lost it all, unfortunately. But if they keep winning, right? They've been winning. They've been winning. They've been winning. They took the body. They have the body now, right? And they're gradually gaining the mind. And I just think about like 1984. I think about George Orwell's 1984, and I've read 1984 maybe three times. And every time you reread something, it's a totally different experience based on where you are in life. And I've seen a couple of posts about it on Reddit, and just thinking about the story, thinking about how the book end, thinking about how the movie end. Someone wrote something along the lines of George Orwell like being a agent for the feds at some point. Um, and although I think most people view it as a warning, right, of how things can be once we kind of reach a certain point. Living this experience this past year and seeing how the life experience has quickly changed, I feel like 1984 is a warning in terms of like once you go this far, it's too late, right? There's no hero in the book. He loses, right? Winston loses, and the world exists as it's meant to, and everyone gets dealt with. My worry and my concern, like, mostly with let's just ditch the idea of meme war. I guess that's not the focus of psychological warfare. Is once we've gone too far to a point where the majority are mentally owned and they're physically owned, that reaches a point where it's too late, right? Where you can't trust anybody, right? That's part of the story of 1984. Trust. He thought he could trust this man. He thought I forget the other gentleman's name, but he thought he could trust him. He thought he was down for him. He thought he was down for the cause. Then he woke up one day. He's getting tortured by a dude like that. That's what it becomes when you collectively let too much go, right? Blackness has collectively let too much go, and that's what slavery ends up being. That's what these current conditions are. So I see it as I don't know. Maybe it's the. I mean, it's definitely the pessimistic. It's the pessimistic concern part of me, right?
Mm.
Concern that if people don't do what they need to do, it might end up being too late, right? We see sperm counts in males are being lowered all over the world. Constant fear of like global collapse. Like there's so much going on. Um, but yeah. I kind of end it with that. Yeah, it's. I think this is like a stronghold, and the worry is sometimes that I say this experience has lost. This is kind of over, but still believing in doing the work, right? That's what matters. Still believing in doing the work. Still believing in connecting with people, sharing information through memes, through post replies, through challenging ideas that are like bigoted or don't make sense. Like there's still a work aspect behind it. Um, and I guess the eventually I come to terms with like this just might be it, right? It just might be the small pocket. And going back to your concept of acceptance and living with it, like, yeah, I can accept that, live with that. I can understand that. It may never be all dandy. It may never be all that. Um, even in the future, but I I want to do, and we all should do as much as we can to enhance the experience. Um, but it's just the concern, right? That's the concern, yeah.
Yeah. Concern is the devil himself. Whew. I
So yeah,
think when it comes
oh, go ahead.
to
Sorry.
no, when it comes to the black experience, I think the one thing that is to be very honored, what it means to have any kind of black ancestry, any kind of indigenous ancestry, is to know that spirit is never to be caged in. That is why eventually all the slaves are eventually not slaves. And there is a mechanism to be appreciated for those who have sacrificed themselves or stuck together in order, because there's a story, I forgot, man, there's a story of a whole tribe of slaves, I think, burning themselves on the boat or something like that. And that's spirit. That's those are such strong spiritual convictions on humanity and the timeline of the history of this planet that gets written about, eventually gets written about, to give all these ideas of what history or the evolution of this planet could have been or was. We take all our philosophies that we think or to understand in our life. We try to find some understanding or a new way of learning into tapping any kind of category that we want to have interest in discovery in this life. And on the subject of this conversation, I'll say history gives many different branches of different perspectives that highlight monumental situations in life. And I can bring it down to just a history of your own country as well, that being the first Black nation, a country, to take back what's rightfully theirs. That is the biggest impact. What it means to be Black, to be melanated, even if you're not from the same country, even if you weren't
It
born, you know what
doesn't.
I mean? I
Nah,
get,
I
I
don't
get
feel
it.
it does.
I
But
get it I'm saying it on a philosophical point of view, not
got it.
not from a. I have no benefit. I'm not Haitian. I have no benefit being from, tying myself to that opinion of mine. But it does, when I philosophize myself and my own identity quest, what it means to be Black, and I say that to highlight that I am Black for my father being Black and my mother being white. That quest comes into my mind of appreciating the history that I was taught and not taught, to accept that about the Haitian culture, and my own personal quest of what it means to be Black, and to fill that out however I can, and using that as like a tool of, I'm not Haitian, but that's pretty fucking dope. Or why are they still poor? Why is, like, all these things that happen, as to accepting again what my original point is, all the things that are evolved or have evolved in the history of this planet. This whole planet is different cultures, different nationalities, different whatever. But when you understand the beauty which science has provided about the melanated DNA, it is much stronger DNA in the history of things, that I can only say that those things that were monumental for the history of what most Americans don't know about the African American culture or what it means to be Black, all those concepts, spirit wins. Spirit in the line of spiritual conversation wins. And that's to accept also the losses during that powerful monumental series. The big wars that were fought with, what is it, Spartans. Like, it's a completely different culture, but there's been monumental situation in the history of this planet that the numbers didn't matter, the quality mattered. And for me, I argue, well, where did the quality come from? How can something so small be so impactful? How can a war, a troop of 300 kill a troop of thousands and become victorious?
They were more skilled. I mean, I feel like that's
Right. And I think
right.
it's right. And I don't know if it's necessarily skill all the time, because what is skill? If
No,
skill
well,
takes,
not all the time, but that particular time, it had to
right,
be skill because it's that one time, right? Like
right.
there's the fluke in reality, and
Hmm.
positive fluke, like it just happened, and it's a story for
Hmm.
inspiration. Like Haiti is
Right,
a fluke in reality because that's not the way it's always been, and
right.
that's not the way it's supposed to be. But
Exactly.
it's the inspiration to your point, yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I find it so remarkable for me to accept the trajectory of, again, everything that I have come to know or indoctrinated to know, to be concerned with or not to be concerned with, of this worldly matters, or my application to such. What am I going to show up to? you know,
Right.
and that those qualities that make or break us individually as to finding connections that we either can find or not, because I think that's the ultimate thing. We have a harder time of, I think, finding solid connections where we can exchange, pardon me, um, differences and still be accepted. I find that more of a lack than, I don't know, than the cliques that find a commonality about something but still feel isolated, not connected. Like, I don't know how to explain that very well, but
Right. It's better to feel alone on your own than in a group. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's from Cowboy Bebop, something similar. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, yeah, man. I just I find it. How can I explain this? The It's such a strange thing for me. Not a strange thing. I keep bringing up sovereignty one way or another. Um, and then like, what does that really mean? Like, entail? And it seems so cliche when you try to define it. Like, worry about yourself, worry about your mental, worry about your physical. Worry about your spiritual. Because it seems like that quest, because it's customized to me and how much I can show up for myself, is maybe not accepted to the rhythm and the pace that society is going on. Like, I can't handle it now. Maybe in a week I'll be better. You know what I mean? Like, that individualistic approach to how I can show up is not accepted by the majority, I'd say. And I think that's the pressure that I think most of us fall into, um, in many varying degrees, because it's not easy to be authentic in a world where everyone's trying to be authentic,
Right.
or trying to find a justifiable point of just existing, or having a justifiable justice upon them so they can feel safe walking outside the house. Like, all these perceived nuances that we're conditioned to pay attention to. And my challenge is, how can we break that tradition and feed it with sovereignty, that if you then still choose to do that, you know that you had a choice. You made that choice. Gave consent to it, not someone take it away. And I think
Right.
consent is very major, and it's very interesting that's a very interesting topic, consent, because I think that's something that the majority of this modern day society is learning more about. Um, but I'm still challenged by that.
For
the
some
fact that
reason, when you
consent.
the say it again.
No, I was just saying the consent it would be an interesting topic to talk about, because um, that is I think collectively as a society, we're talking more about what it means to offer and give consent to something.
Right. I mean, I feel like the another way for consent is just kind of dealing with authenticity, right? Like
Mm,
thinking about I've been using the language social contracts, right? So I always do work because it's just easy, and it's like one of the places we all have to exist in, right? You'll pay me X amount of money for this type of job, this amount of hours a week. I signed the contract, I agree to your terms, so I'm gonna authentically show up because we had an agreement. Um, and you do your part. You pay me authentically based on what I've earned. Um, and I mean, maybe for, I guess for me, yeah, I think consent is just authentic, right? Yeah, just being real about who you are, real about what you want. The challenge again is not being accepted, right, for your authenticity. I think that's a lot of um, I guess the doubt and the pessimism that people have within themselves. It's external fear, right? Why would it's nurtured fear, going back to like nature and nurture, right? Like naturally you want to be who the fuck you want to be, you want to do what you want to do, you want to, most people, right, most people want to abide by society's rules or find a place where they can be as free as they want to. And you throw other people into the mix, and it's just these conflicting ideas about what you can and can't do. And a lot of the challenges, acceptance, ego, not being able to humble yourself and accept the social contract after you agree to it, not be authentic, not fulfill your role. And yeah, I kind of went left with it. I know you're talking about maybe, what type of consent were you speaking about when it came to mind?
That was good. No, I was. It was. It was correlated to mix, because when I speak on that, I embody it with mechanisms of healing. Um, I firmly believe, from also being subjective to it, I cannot heal within anything within me if I don't give consent towards accepting the healing, in any facet. Whether it's political, I show myself up to a doctor's office and get a prescription. That's up to me.
Right.
Whether to accept from my mom or family members or friends assistance or suggestions or opinions about my healing mechanisms that I could try out. It's still a decision, although I appreciate it, it's still up to me. Um, how I want to heal and am healing individuals by giving readings or doing Reiki healing eventually. It's all still honoring that I cannot do the healing, and my energy will not be accepted if the person doesn't say, "I accept your energy." That is
Right.
consent, and that is what is so remarkable with what I am doing now with energy work. Um, to honor, wow, how something so simple has been overstimulated, and that in and of itself is so crazy and ridiculous to me, because ultimately it will use many different form of language to try to express our own individuality out, because we are bombarded with so many different degrees of language on this planet. But ultimately we still have a brain. The majority of us have a heart. We have, as you know, we have all these bodily mechanisms that make us human, is my point. And that energy concept of simplicity that I know hacks a lot of individuals' political mindset, perhaps, or empathic journey towards where their heart might have been broken or shut off. Um, it still would allow. I cannot be accepted, is my point, in any form of disagreement or acceptance if that person, if the thing that I'm engaging myself to does not give me consent. If they don't listen to me, if they don't want to be around me, if they don't listen to my readings, if they decide to hate it, if all these things will not work if the person itself, me, you, does not consciously become aware, and that's a form of consent. And politically, of course, it goes into many different brackets that are much more extreme. Much more extreme meaning consent to sexuality, consent to confidence, and consent to expression of emotions, consent to having a political mind frame or not, like all these different forms. But I would say that's where I would argue what sovereignty is all about, to understand that you do have the ability, but it's only with your consent that something is allowed to either be gifted to you, because if it's not, that's karma, and that energy will pay its price. Just like when somebody doesn't, like something as really harsh as rape, it's that's a price to be paid. That's going against the law and order of things, and that's where I would argue is like bad karma, because you are violating somebody's consent.
You,
That makes sense.
yeah, I hate. Yeah,
It's
I
very deep.
forgot. I had an initial thought, but then you brought up karma. Actually, I was thinking about and maybe this might transition into karma
Mm-hmm.
somehow, but giving yourself content, and that, like the language of giving yourself permission. And I think maybe I saw somebody posted yesterday, and like having you say it now, and I analyze language, right? Like the meme horse. I wanna understand what it really means. So I'm trying to understand what it means to kind of give ourselves permission or give ourselves consent in terms of viewing it as external, and why is it viewed as an external? Because
What do you
it
think is
give
external?
well, if you say if you say you're giving yourself permission, it feels external. It feels like there's one layer removed versus you doing it. I mean,
What
it
draws
could
the
be just be
but what draws the force of doing it? You don't think it's conscious thought doing something?
right. I understand maybe I'm not explaining correctly. I understand the thought process. I understand, you know, thinking about being depressed and not wanting to do something, and then rationalizing the idea with yourself, and then completing the act. Why do we view it as giving permission? I think it's weird. It feels external, right? It feels external to give yourself the okay to exist. Um, I don't know. I think I'm just challenging the language.
No, I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
I challenge acceptance
yeah,
because I would say I would say to that, if we're gonna honor in a spiritual aspect that there is a five-dimensional and beyond, it's to accept then maybe in your inquisition that the external thought is not something generated within you, but at a higher frequency of something that you don't understand. So maybe it's an external process. I can accept that. As far as accepting the challenge back, that it's an external validation that you're giving yourself, and that I would challenge that back with saying whatever inquisition is either dependent on or not dependent on, and taking a leap of faith, that's still an internal mechanism of thought process. That could still in and of itself be dependent on previous situations, on how you were raised and what your opinions are, whatever that you've been attacked with, projections that could maybe dissuade you or persuade you to maybe not really know that you, I don't know, whatever you believe, because everything changes. I could, like, again, I keep it very, very simple. Let's say my favorite color right now is blue because I choose it to be. But maybe if whatever reason I'm around the next trajectory of people that I was purple everywhere, purple everywhere, purple everywhere. And like people have their objections to me liking blue. And then they say you have to pick a specific blue. And then I'm like, oh my God, all this anxiety about me just thinking that I thought I liked blue. Now there's so many facets of blue. Now there's turquoise and navel and cobalt, like all these trajectories to make it more bluish. But the premise is it's blue, right? Or the premise is somebody doesn't like me liking blue. So ultimate thing is that whatever it is that then I change my mind maybe for moving forward, that all of a sudden I am afraid to talk about my blue is my favorite color, or I change my mind, or whatever it is. The question would be then the moment of me moving forward of my life, accepting like a sponge all these opinions, projections, um, also assistance. Well, Shari, you have light blue, sky blue, cobalt blue, you have a choice if you want to make a choice. Like, am I persuaded by society in that moment, or can I still stand strong? And that in that moment right now, and up to me, if not changing my favorite color, is blue. That's what I'm trying to honor. Is that's very when you when I'm hearing those words about whether it is an external process. Of course, it can be external for the impact of how you internally will reach a decision based on whether you have confidence within yourself to stick with what it is that you know, or you're open minded to change what it is that you know and evolutionize to something else, or you're completely making up something new. I don't know, whatever it is, that's that's still an internal process. That's still saying, yes, I give myself permission to invalidate myself or give validation towards. And that's what I would say is in more internal dialogue as to why it's still a self thing. It's still that's more geared to sovereignty and taking control of that, in my opinion.
right. I mean, I I'm not taking away that it's internal. I know there's some type of internal aspect to it, and I think you kind of brought it up with the idea of your color blue, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I like blue, there's all these facets of blue. Then you brought up the idea of society pressuring you on a different blue. But you started it by saying, I like blue. You didn't say, I give myself permission to like blue, right? So I'm not challenging the idea of the choices we make for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason or whatever influence. It's more so the language, language, and I get, I guess it's self affirmation, which I get, and maybe that's kind of what I'm challenging. The need to say that, like, let's say you switch it up. I give myself permission to like blue. Well, who wasn't giving you permission before,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it was you, why? Why weren't you given to yourself before?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, I guess it's finding the root. And if sometimes maybe the root is external, right? Maybe I chose the wrong blue because I feel pressured, so I decided to choose this blue just because, like, I just needed to get everyone off my back. I think the language of giving myself permission or having to self validate. Uh,
I told
I, I
yeah.
let me take that back.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
not self validate. Um, I guess it makes it seem like you don't that you need to grant you need to tell yourself it's okay to exist. I think that's part of it, right? And I understand that it's rooted in the. I mean, maybe I'm just answering the question, right? It's rooted in external, right? Because going back to what I said before, like naturally, we want to live life and enjoy life, and a lot of our experience is based off the external kind of shifting us. A lot of it is based off of the nurture kind of changing us and pressuring us to see things and live a certain way. Um, and so I guess maybe I think there's a need to get away from that at some point. I think maybe there's a need to get away of I give myself permission, or um, I don't know. Yeah,
I'm laughing
I'm trying
because
to think.
I agree with
Just
you.
trying to think of other layers or like other examples. But
It's funny when I hear you say it from that perspective. I totally understand with you. I stand in understanding at that point, because when, again, the way energy works, and as a healer, I wouldn't, because you said affirmation, right? It's not it. The affirmation is not saying I am giving myself permission.
maybe it's
It's
a
not
validation.
it's.
So go ahead. Go ahead.
It's
I was
about,
gonna say
yeah,
maybe,
exactly. It's
yeah,
exactly. It's more
validation.
dear
Yeah.
to, exactly. Now, in healing methodology, you would not, as a healer, advise anyone to say, "This is your affirmation. I give I give myself permission." No, it's I am. I am whatever. Like, I
Right.
am ambitious. I have peace. I am beautiful. I am powerful. You already are. And I think as a healer, as a mentor, as a life coach, as a therapist, as a psychologist, as whatever it is that we deem to be true through education, yes, through whatever it is believed to, I think the ultimate goal is to always validate that point some way or another, that it's not the healer that does the healing, but the healee that gets the healing through the consent form, meaning breaking the barrier of saying, yeah, you don't have to ask yourself or give yourself permission. That's not the quest. But to train, the reason why I explain it that way is to, because I'm a communicator. I understand that through communication and the way the words are delivered is also part of the language that I know that you study, right? And to hear you then apply your studying aspect of what you heard me say is interesting as to why I explain it myself that way. But in a
Right.
healing aspect, I would say, if I have a healer, if I have somebody that I'm healing and I'm affirming them anything, I'm not saying to them, my practice is not to give them the practice of give yourself permission. No, I'm telling you conviction. You already are. And I'm here to help you, assist you, boost you up with what it is to affirm what you are. And I think that's the interesting tactic that has been, here comes the word again, indoctrinated, that it's, you have to give yourself permission. No, but sometimes people need to hear, give yourself permission to kickstart and hijack. Oh shit, I don't need anybody's approval. I can do this. And what I can do is I am. And for thus I become. And that's the interesting psychology about philosophizing the language and talking about shit, because
Right.
I have up to this point had my own degrees of how I didn't give my own self permission. And that's why I said what I said. But I know ultimately my truth is I already fucking am. And I've been distracted in my life so much so that I'm like, no, wait a minute, I have to get back to grounding myself. I am, right? It's a hard fucking quest. And I'm human. I
Right.
chose this human life. This is not meant to be easy. It's not. And I'm reminded and humbled every day for people that have more problems than I do, or just problems in general that make me humbled in this life. But yeah, I just went off a little tangent there, but consent of feeling that you can feel whatever, but to hack things is where I say, I might have brought it up before, is emotional detachment. Counseling in any form teaches you to accept the emotion process that you have to go through, but to accept any ones that come. But practicality is knowing that you are. And I think that's a very hard philosophy to make a one pill fits all for everyone, because that's not true. It's a customizable life plan that requires work and showing up. And yeah, giving yourself permission to say I can show up for that, and giving yourself permission to say I forgive myself for not showing up for all these years, or ignoring it, or not knowing, because it's going to come a time where we're like, ah, shit, I should have seen that coming. And you know people like conspiracies or whatever, I'll go off on another tangent, but people will be like, well, I've tried to tell you. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
but I have to forgive because it's relevant in my life. I have to forgive those individuals that I tried to wake up last year and know that, okay, I can't do my job now. We'll wait another 5 years. Oh, okay, you get it now? I'll forgive the last 6 years that I was in hell trying to be upset that I couldn't wake you up, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you now can accept me. That kind of thing. And that
Right.
goes with
Right.
a
Right.
little bit of permission and a little bit of conviction. Like, yeah, I give myself permission, but I already am.
And I guess that's part of the balance needed, right? It's always the
Mhm.
I guess it's a baby step, right? And I guess maybe my concern was worrying. I mean, I look at it on all types of aspect when it comes to health, whether it's physical training, whether it's life coaching, whether it's therapy, any type of aspect where someone else is um, directly influencing your drive or guiding your drive, right? If it stays rooted on the external, then you limit your potential to no longer need permission from the trainer or anyone, or even from yourself. You become essentially, right? You become what you needed to be, and you keep doing that. And so I guess that's more of my, I guess, hope, just to see that the flow between permission leading into actualization and commitment to whatever the workflow is.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with adding on to hope on that one, because
Yeah.
it's ultimately, I think, would be wonderful to get across to people. Mhm.
Yeah. So marijuana laws. Just
Yeah.
is it- thinking about what earlier in terms of like the system and trying to one step ahead, but the chess, the make of the chess game is always one step ahead, right? They know all the moves.
Mm.
Um, and again, not saying, never saying that someone can't be greater than the chess master or the chess creator. Um, I think, yeah, maybe it's just really just. I think in order to kind of beat the master, you have to think outside the box. Going back to the
Mm.
idea of external influence, right? If I'm only doing what I'm told to do, if I'm only doing what the trainer, what the coach, what the therapist is telling me to do, then I only exist and live within their realm of guidance,
Mm.
right? Playing the
Wow.
chess game, I only live within. If you only tell me the rook goes this way, the knight goes this way, this and this, I say okay, and I just consume the information and I kind of do what I'm told. But what makes you a chess master, right, is the individual thinking. It's being able to kind of break free and um, create whatever strategies you have, create whatever works to kind of get you your W.
Mm.
Um, so somehow, surprisingly,
Hmm.
somehow surprisingly, um, Colorado marijuana regulation bill sails through the legislature. I'm just reading some quick notes from the Denver Post. Lawmakers gave final approval Tuesday to HB. I had to make this larger. Excuse me. Actually, I'll just go through it. To HB 21-1317, the most sweeping regulatory bill for the cannabis industry since legislation passed with no resistance for either chamber, 56-8 in the House and 35-0 in the Senate. It's going to the governor, Governor Polis, next, and he will or won't sign it into law, and that'll kind of decide what happens next. So um, the bill will be directed towards the Colorado School of Public Health, and they would do more studies and tests on THC, high potencies, low potencies, and then using their studies, they'll kind of guide and direct new law and legislation rather, um, on marijuana use. So this current bill is starting with restricting daily purchase limits to 8 grams per person, which is a fifth of the current limit. They'd also want to do a real time database. So right now, I can go to as many dispensaries as I want and get as much weed as I want. Um, and I think that the current limit was 1/5. What's 8 times 5? I should know this, right? 70. I don't even know 8 times 5 is 40. I guess, yeah. Um, so right now, I can go to different dispensaries and get as much weed as I want. Like there's nothing stopping me. All they do is check my state ID. But under this law, there will be a database in the system. So if I go to dispensary at noon, and I get my 8 grams, but I try to go to another one to pick up more weed. Like I'm in the system now. They know my consumption rate. They know I'm at my limit. I can't get any more weed. Um, and it's just it's corny, right? Like the reason and the logic behind it is fearing for the teens, fearing for
Oh,
the safety
Jesus
of
Christ.
teens,
Always
right?
the youth. Uh-huh.
Um, and I mean, like on one aspect, it's going to, I mean, it could increase sales overall for marijuana use because people be willing to buy more. Maybe I have my friend get it for me, uh, but it might just kind of cause an increase in like the black market, right? Like
Mm.
legalizing weed. Actually, no. I think hmm, I feel like either I watched an episode of a podcast or read something that said that the marijuana black market actually increased in states where it's legal. Maybe I'll look it up during like our next talk swap out. But
I can see that though, because
yeah,
of the concern. Going back to the concern of why all of a sudden now
right,
the
right.
concern. What are they doing? What's going on? Is it still pure? Is it still weed? Are they putting things on there to make it better? It's like super weed, like
All right.
are they gonna boost it up?
Let's see. So several new rules designed to ensure medical marijuana patients have a more substantial relationship with doctors. So it makes it less easier for like teens or young adults to just hey, I need doctors say I need a bacchiotomy, right? And you get a medical card. So they wants to be they want there to be they want there to be more engagement between doctors and patients, but that's already not happening because doctors are overworked, hospitals are understaffed. Uh, so that doesn't make sense. Um, and the final part is parents, and it's one father saying it's long past time for our regulations to catch up with these high potency products. Um, excuse me, where's that at?
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, yeah. It's just a group from Boulder that's advocating for the bill, and I guess their perspective is these new laws are gonna help the children and save the children and stop them from consuming weed. Then I was rereading an article today, and I was thinking about like where's the alcohol pass, right? Like where's the alcohol? Where's the alcohol database, right? Well, I mean, I can go to a store and buy as much alcohol as I want, and no one cares. And alcohol is more deadly. There's more deaths related to it. It's more. I don't know if it's more addictive, but Like, where's the legislation for that? And then I was just thinking about, it's the passports, right? Like, it's not one way or another they get you in the system, right? Like, you want to smoke weed, cool, but we're gonna put you in the system and we're gonna follow your habits. We're gonna see what you smoke. We're gonna see how often you smoke. We're gonna see how much you purchase, and we're gonna, we have a better understanding about you, right? Now you connect that with Chrome and cookies and all the, all the information that's stored about you somewhere. And for me, it just feels like more regulation in some type of capacity. The bill itself, but again, the long-term negative effects and potential. And it's one man kind of decides the fate right now, and he's been, from what I've read, he's been supportive of lenient marijuana laws. Like, there've been laws like respecting the daily limit, but it's never enforced. Like, no one really cares. You expect people to be responsible, and they are for the most part. So it's interesting to see where he's going to go and vote, or whether he's going to sign the legislation.
Interesting. That would be more interesting to witness than the whole promise of it being there. Because it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to do this. It doesn't, you know, because it's like you brought it up, the liquor thing. That is always the most one thing that when it comes to consuming alcohol always induces um, some sort of imbalance towards our emotion. And we condition ourselves to think that it becomes part of this social act, right? Alcohol. And I can just imagine as a teenager, individuals trying to again break free from whatever social norm that they're trying to grow into, because the teenagers are always about trying to find themselves, right? Like I remember for me, I was trying to find myself in being a teenager, and I see that time period as that discovery. So to know that even in my generation, alcohol was so poisoning to this my generation is to not understand why there hasn't been legislation towards that. I agree. Why is it not? And then in the system that person purchased alcohol in the morning, and then again in the afternoon, then again, and to me, in honoring what the statistics have been in regards to the overindulgence of alcohol and its detriments to society and to individuals, I find it absolutely immoral to even use that as the same premise of argument that weed needs that too. Because weed for me is a premise of it coming from something produced by Mother Nature that we pluck off. With alcohol, we have to generate it for it to become something, right? And we just pluck off the bud, technically, from the plant. And if you're smart enough, you can be like, oh, it's dry. Let's smoke it, right? Like it doesn't taste, but when you pluck it off from the plant, it's not safe for us to. I don't want to say safe, but it's considered a superfood in that it has many mineralities to it, but it's not something that we should consume in the everyday, because the way it breaks down in our body, like over time, it could be uncomfortable for us. Let's put it that way, right? That's like the detriment of eating and consuming raw, plucked off marijuana. Um, and to consider that what weed has done for me and provides for me, and also its challenges, and for other people, and for cultures, and the people that have been doing time because of herb, based on how much they had on them or didn't, or like it's it doesn't make sense to me. That world does not make sense to me to legislate that in any facet, as to question why it hasn't even been considered for alcohol. It's like, wait a minute, in and of itself doesn't make sense. But since we're
Right.
not in that reality and we're at this reality, it would be more interesting to figure out what people will, in the community of Colorado, I guess, at this time politically, fight for, standing up to what they communally would want for being residents of Colorado? Like, are individuals gonna just let things go? The common people, the where we build these laws and sustain these laws as individuals to this society? Are we just gonna sit back and say that we have no control and say, oh, that's just the way the system goes? Or are we going to question whether or not it's actually true? Because that's where I question, what is sovereignty? What is sovereignty based on that challenge? You know, you just sit back and just let it go, or are you going to stand at the doorstep and be the data and the cookies to the individuals and fight back and say, wait a minute, this would cause a lot of uproar to the thousands of people. You know what I mean? Like, because then they would challenge us. Well, you didn't show up to vote. You weren't there. You weren't, like, all these things. But then most of us are not aware. Like, I'm not aware or concerned about what happens in Colorado because my ass is not in Colorado. But I'd be ignorant of me saying that too. Why should I not be concerned? Why should I not be concerned? You know, because if I have care for you, you are a resident of Colorado. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, how it can impact me in one way or another if I also just sit back and be like, oh yeah, okay. Thanks for
Yeah, I mean,
sharing.
it
Thanks for
it
sharing your
also
daily concern.
becomes right. You know, it also can set precedent, right? If it works in the state, um, I think Colorado was the first state, if not the second. I think maybe Oregon was the first state. But one of the first states to legalize it. If it works here, then you can set the tone for the rest of the nation to kind of swap out whatever
Mm-hmm.
their laws in. I mean, even while more states are legalizing it, right? This is something new to consider. Um,
Yeah, just
I
like the
mean,
Excelsior Pass here in New York,
right,
the vaccine.
right.
Ooh, look at this.
And like getting back to your point about what do we do, right? So on one aspect,
Mm-hmm.
it passed passed the House, passed the Senate with little pushback. So on one level, it means either the people didn't do their work, right? They didn't make the phone calls, they didn't send the emails, they didn't text to tell their representatives, hey, we don't want this. Um, and again, like it's at the helm of one man to kind of decide. Like I saw a post in Colorado Reddit that I'm in, and someone was like, so someone posted in like an email form, or you could call and send a copy and pasted message, and they were like, "What's the point? Why are you doing this? Like, or you think making phone calls and they're gonna be like, I changed my mind. I received 100 phone calls, and I'm just thinking about downward thinkers, right? People who just hopeless, who just kind of give up, like, yeah, whatever, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. It's very
And
challenging.
again, right, where's the mental aspect, right? If we go back to the idea of the system and everything that's related to it, right? Again, it beats the physical, mental, and spirit out of you. So this person doesn't even believe in this. This person doesn't even believe in a bare minimum effort, right? Maybe they want anarchy, right? Maybe they want to turn shit up. Maybe that's it, right? Maybe the lazy effort, the low effort democracy. Yeah, maybe they don't support low effort democracy. Maybe that's it. That's a better way to kind of see it. Um, I mean, but they didn't offer suggestions, so I think that's also part of it, right? It's downplaying the idea, like this doesn't work, this doesn't make sense. They're like, all right, peace. I'm like, I'm out. I said my piece. I did my time. I'm out. Like yeah. Everyone's gonna cheer for you, but like when you see the problem, you try to offer the solution, or be open to have the dialogue to find other possible solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I don't know. There's a part of me, like I don't care. Like I don't care. Um, and I guess I mean,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah. Go ahead.
Um, do you not care to, would voting mean not caring? You believe in voting?
Nah. Yeah. Yeah. N- no, I don't. I don't. I don't believe voting. I believe voting on a local level. I don't do that because I'm not involved, and um, I'm disconnected with the community, so it doesn't. I don't want to I don't want to be an uninformed voter, right? I don't want to fake the funk, act like I know what's going on, and then put my 2 cents in and be like, well, this sounds good and that's cool. Uh, Colorado does a very good job when it comes to voting. They send you booklets with information on any new legislation or law that's going to be passed. Um, so that they make the effort to allow you to be an informed voter, and that that's dope to me because I know I don't think I've experienced that in New York at all. And maybe it's all digital now. And, I'm sure it exists somewhere. I'm sure you can do people can do research, but then they make the effort to make sure that their voters are informed. And on that level, I vote and I support whatever I do or don't. On a more realistic local level, I guess that's for me living in a neighborhood and feeling like, okay, this is home, this is where we're going to be settled, and then wanting to be kind of more involved because I want to raise my children in that neighborhood and I do care about where the direction goes. So I'm not there yet, but on the national level, no. I mean, I did this interview with PBS last year for the 2020 election. I was like, it has no impact. We see it going back to going back to war again, right? You see them. We've seen the memes, right? We see the post about possible election fraud and this the instant dismissal about even the idea behind it, right? Like you can show that, and I'm not, I don't know if it happened or not. I'm not saying that, but seeing the videos, like why is he doing? Why did he open the door and just dump dump those envelopes, those mysterious looking envelopes that look exactly like votes into this pile? That looks suspicious, right? Like there's the questioning, right? The mind is so conditioned not to question anything that that hasn't been conditioned from the external. I guess going back to like the internal and external aspect. Um, and granted, I wasn't aware of that before or aware about the potential before, but it I've seen it not work. Right? I mean, that's it, right? I've seen it not work. Going back to 2000 and maybe 2001 election. Nah, 2000 maybe the 2000 election when it was Al Gore, yeah, Al Gore and George Bush, right? And Al Gore had more votes, and then they revoted, they recounted, and Al Gore, I forgot the word, but he said, "Ah, you got it." He said, "You got it." Right? Someone probably made a phone call to Al Gore and said, "Yo, this ain't what you want," and he said, "Ah, you got it." And he picked up the other line and said, "Yo, you got it. I'm good. I'm good." And he said, "I'm out." Right? That's what, like, that's the belief. That's the comical conspiracy behind it. But you see the transition of elections, right? You see the commercialism, right? The vote or die every 4 years, vote or die, right? And for a lot of people, right, the past 4 years have been like emotional, mental, spiritual death, right? Because of the conditioning and because of the system and what they want you to consume, right? What you're willingly a part of in terms of consuming, but also under their guidance and under their control. Um, I mean, yeah, I think. I mean, I asked myself the question, so I'm answering out loud. But yeah, I mean, I think Trump won the election with popular votes, right? I think there was fraud last year. I think the Democrats did whatever they needed to do to get that man out of office. The game's the game, right? It's, all right, that's what it is, right? I believe, and I've seen for um, pr- the second, not preliminaries. Why can't I remember words? The second, um,
Sorry, I can't
basically,
help you.
it's all right. It's all right. When the, I mean, primaries. There we go. it's language is weird, right? Like you don't use a word. Like when's the last time you used the word primary talking about the election, right? Like not till like last year.
Well, that's why
So
I'm not
you
a
lose it,
politician.
right? You lose it, right?
Always late
You
to the
seen
game.
it, yeah. On the Democratic side, you've seen it with Bernie Sanders, right? On both counts, 2020 and 2016, the people wanted Bernie. They wanted Bernie, but someone made a phone call to Bernie. They're saying what you want. Bernie said, "All right, you got it, right?
You got it. You got it. It's all
You
yours.
got it. You got it. You got it."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the game. Yeah, I mean that's the game. Um,
And then we're in it. And then we're here today. Ooh. And then we're here today.
and we see right, and we see the consequences for those choices, right? But no
Mm-hmm.
one going back to like authentic, going back to consent, right? Like where's the consent? Where's you holding up your end of the consent, right? You told me that if I hand in this piece of paper, right, and the majority of people who legally vote the way I do, if we're the majority, you said that the person I want is going to win, right? Democracy is supposed to be based in consent, right? The consent of the people on how this country should be run. But that's not the reality, right? That's not the system we're in. Um, so no, I don't. All that to say, right? I know I don't think voting matters on a presidential level. I don't think it ever will, ever again, until going back to your point of like chaos and things change. Until there's some gradual shift and change. Until, I mean, you brought up a point earlier. I can't actually. I think it's like going back and using like examples of the past, right? A lot of things work on that scale because it's isolated, right? And that's the physical aspect. That's the physical war that we're in. But now where there's a global awareness, global connectivity, so it has to be mental, right? Like no, I'm not. Nobody's going out respectfully, right? There's a small amount of people going out to fight physical wars. It's very limited, right? Most war is cyber terrorism, and the majority of the current war we're in is all mental. Um, I lost the point, but yeah, yes, I'll end it right there.
I think you were trying to go back with something in the past.
Oh yeah, so looking at back in the past, physical war. Now we're in a mental war game, and I think like this might be the peak, right? This might with where we are socially, where we are um ecologically, right? Things are bad, right? So whatever the next drought on the west, like the impending drought that's happening on the west, whatever whatever happens in the next 5 to 10 years, like right, and again going back to the male sperm count decreasing globally, whatever happens in the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna hit that point of like not even catastrophic, this monumental change, right? It'll be that monumental change where hopefully when people like really see the level of destruction that we've all allowed, right? We've all been participants in this life experience, and as a collective, we haven't done what we needed to do, and we're aware of it, through our fault, through ignorance, and all of that. That maybe those 15%, right, who have been knocking on the doors, trying to put people on, right, trying to inform people, it'll create the mental shift that people need, right? I mean, last going back to last year, I know you kind of want to talk about like mentally dealing with the pandemic, and this might be a good tie-in. Last year should have been a wake-up call for arrogantly I say everybody, right? Should have been a wake-up call for everybody. It's not realistic, right? Should have been a wake-up call for a lot more people is what I say. Should have been a wake-up call for a lot more people. But whatever mental, emotional control that's been conditioned up into this, that up until everyone until last year, it was a game changer, right? Like it really shifted our culture, right? I mean, you look back at the past 10 years. Um, like Erica brought up this great point. Like last year, we were talking about the people being vaccinated, anti-vax, pro-vax, and she was like, what if the whole vaccination talk when it came to kids and like the Disneyland outbreak, what if that was just like to set the stage to kind of lead us into where we are now? And I'm like, yeah, that's a dope idea. That's probably right. Um, like you, once either you have the enlightenment or you gain the enlightenment through the process, and you look at the past through new eyes, right? Like I said, I reread a book. I reread 1984, and it's a different book. It's not the same book because I've seen I've already seen what he's talking about play out, and I see where it's headed. So it's like, how do we not get that ending? I don't want that ending, right? I want to change that. So what how do we supersede the system? How do we think ahead of the system, right? Instead of working within the system. I say someone put him onto that man, right? Within the system and told him, this is the system that we have and it works. It works. You do these things, you're gonna be free and we're gonna revolution and all that. It was within the system. And like how do we break free from that, right? How do we move on from that? So hopefully, going back to the point, going back, I think to where I was going, enough people wake up and learn. And unfortunately, right, the elevated chaos, the elevated catastrophes just lead more and more people into the awakening, right? And however, whatever that transitions into, and so be it, right? If it's if it's Mad Max type of world, so be it. If it's the Giver, where we transition into these ignorant in terms of not knowing, it's ignorant, I guess secluded societies where we're just with these 100 or so people and that's just our tribe, whatever, and they're just different pockets while there's another whole world going on, so be it, right? Like whatever it is, man. Like i don't I don't see it changing, right, within the next few years, until, like, to your point, that there's catastrophe, until shit. I don't know how bad things. And maybe that's it, right? I think subconsciously, or I'm realizing maybe subconsciously, the people who are who didn't wake up last year, right? Who grew up believing, right? I don't trust. Like, I was on Reddit real quick earlier, and someone showed like a tweet of this dude named Dan Price, and he's this CEO who used to make like $1 million or multi-million dollars, and he reduced his salary so that all of his employees could make $70,000 a year. Dope, yay, praise. That's dope. It's a dope concept. But now, whenever I see him, he's just pushing what everyone does, right? Just, oh, this person makes, Jeff Bezos did this, and this person did that, and it's like, okay, right? The millions of people who follow you, right? What's the next step? Like, why? Like, where's the influencing, right? Like, where's the risk in telling people, hey, like I think of like a Sean King. You familiar with Sean King?
Yes.
Okay, he's a
Artist?
journal. No, he's a journalist. Um, Supportive of Black Lives Matter.
Oh no.
Um, but when he posts stuff, when he posts content, there's a revolutionary mindset behind it. Regardless of people have different views about him, but regardless of what people may view him as, there's a action plan behind the things he posts. Like, call this person up, do this, do this. But the influencers and the people who have these stages where they have 1 point whatever million or 5 million, they're just passing on information, and it's like, all right, that's it, right? And that's a low effort meme, right? Like, if I take a tweet, somehow reconnecting, right? If I take a tweet and just post it as an image, in a sense it's a meme, right? It's a meme, and it's low effort because I think there needs to be more. And I think there needs to be some type of responsibility from the person who's posting it. So anyway, someone posted an image of him. And I'm like, yeah, he's been riding like that that 70K salary thing for like 5 years, and now he just does what everyone else does, right? He just posts stuff and that's it. Um, I lost the thought, but it's all good. Go ahead, go ahead.
Um, I was hoping we'd finish that. No, I was. You were trying to assimilate the going back in the past thing. I think tied into. I'm trying to catch it for you, man. I was in there.
I guess where we are, and oh yeah, it worked. It worked in the past because we're small scale. Now we're at this global scale, global consciousness. That's part of the goal, right? The monolithic thinking, the global citizen aspect, right? If 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 every country in the world requires me to have a vaccine, then that means that I have access. I'm part of the world now compared to the people who don't, right? Like that's some type of that's conditioning, right? So I, I guess maybe it's going back to the idea of reaching a point where we've gone too far. We've gone too far, and there isn't enough work to kind of be applied. And I think I was going back to the idea of like catastrophe and believing that uh, enough people. If most, I think a lot of people, a lot of people who had all these beliefs up until last year. And then they got scared, man. They saw the reality of what the world could be, right? And they got scared. And I think subconsciously a lot of them know that it's not as bad as they're told. It's not as bad as they've been told. It's not as bad as it's being sold, but it's easy to just kind of accept things, right? It's easy to accept comfort. It's easy to accept care. It's easy to accept the rewards, like going back to the idea of rewards, right? And the different shifts, right? There's the physical awards, like the stickers. You go back to the idea of IG stories and like having special banner around your picture. All these ways to
Oh God.
um people use the word virtue signal, and on one aspect some of it is virtue signaling,
Mhm.
but also just to show support and be part of it and feel safe and feel like you're part of feel like you're on the winning side, right? Because you don't want to be the other people because they're that they're the ones being going to be shunned from society. They're the ones who aren't going to be allowed to go through different states. And I don't want that. I want an easy life. I want to, and I'll risk it all. I'll risk it all. I'll risk my health. I'll risk my body. I'm going to do what's easy. I'm not going to go back to like idea of research. I'm not going to do my own research. When I see things that I know make sense, I'm going to deny them because then it takes me away from my comfort. So yeah, I think a lot of people know but they just made the easy choice because feeling safe, feeling wanted, feeling like you're part of something good, feeling like you're doing good because the external is telling you that you're doing good. Like why not, right? Why not?
Going
Why
back
not?
to the
So
safety netting that I mentioned. The
right.
safety netting.
So the goal is to the goal is hopefully, and people are like I see again going through Reddit. I see people like what, I shouldn't have done this, or um really worried and concerned about the adverse reactions they're having, and slowly seeing people just like I wasn't um you know I gained new perspective. Basically I gained new perspective, and maybe that's what it is, right? It was their own personal experience or their own personal catastrophic experience that right, it needs to be more relative. It can't be, since we kind of gone so far in terms of the mental conditioning and control. The only way for for people who aren't awake and aware to change is to kind of have that personal relative real experience where in front of you, it happened to you. You're like, all right, cool. I need to change now. That's the challenge. That's the challenge.
It goes back into when you're hitting the nail on the head as to what I meant earlier. Sovereignty. You will not understand it until you understand what it means for you to be relating to something, feeling that
All right.
relativity, feeling the impact of that mind heart destruction, and being left with the spiritual. Because we've been conditioned with the mind, we've been conditioned how to think about and feel with what our mind has been left to consume and assume about the things we consume. So we've been ignoring our spiritual pathways. We've been conditioned to ignore it, or we've been conditioned to have boundaries on top of the indoctrination pursuit of what it means to be spiritual. When I address it in the highlighting of the chaos through religion involved in that idea of spirituality and all these nuances and effects in the social construct of social society and what it means to be authentic within that journey of self-expression. And that's where I know it's where I get that frustration and passion now mixed together with its fiery pursuit and quest, um, to explain to people some way somehow that it is all spiritual from day one to the day you leave, from the moment you took breath, from the moment you have your last breath. It is all a spiritual quest. And I have patience and honor everyone's philosophy of whether they agree with me when I use that analogy or not, because that means open for conversation. And then I'll have a chance to maybe give more of um, my intake as to why I say that 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 final stampage, that everything is spiritual from the moment you seek breath and the moment it's your last breath. The reason why I say that is because if we understand how powerful that is, and this is also to respect those individuals who used in their life experiences religion to give them sort of balance and understanding to whatever brings them to um, the sanctuary that religion provides for them, or mechanisms of life coaching, a better eating diet, anything to fortify the self, right? Those are all attributes to understanding what we fight spiritually, what we are antagonized in through society to either figure out whether you have it or not, whether you can make a judgment call based on your intuition. Do you know what intuition is? Do you know that there is something within you that is pushing forward for you to break out? Do you understand maybe that if I use the analogy of the inner child, does there something in your mind come up in your inner child to say, oh, wait a minute, that's weird. If I pay attention to my inner child, that's like youthful energy and that person thing, its identity, however I identify it as, that's the quest of what it means to be spiritual in layman's terms. Is figuring out the inner youthness, the inner child, the inner quest. And that is ultimately to tie into the challenging aspect of what I would challenge with everything that you said is, so what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate tactic to the future is to consider and always, forever, for it has always been and forever will be moving forward, is to protect the youth of our children. Always. It is always, always the better slogan, the better tie, the better everything that we always, always show me the one person that disagrees. That in the society, we don't try to penalize or question when they do disagree as to how we are not or how we should always protect the youth. And that's my argument for my strike for the future. And my youth, when I say youth, I'm still talking to that 99-year-old person because I want to know that inner child, that inner spirit, that fire, that pursuit, that motivation, why you're here. Has that been answered to you? Have you done it? Have you questioned it? Have you lived your life? Have you fulfilled your life? Have you all the inquisitions, all your imaginations? How were they challenged? What was your life all about? That's my interest in wanting to have conversation with people, especially older. It's like, what do you have? What did you experience? What did tell me
Right.
all about it? What can I fucking learn, right? What did you see? What did you see? What do you have to offer? And that's the ultimate goal, to explain my zeal and my compassion to understand why I can still wake up every day and go to sleep every day, despite all the bullshit that happens with everything that I don't fucking know, and everything that I'm trying to understand with what I do know, and how I'm trying to express to other people if they don't know, and I'm now upset that they don't get it, and I want to try to convince. All this act of sovereignty based on a timeline of how we experience life with how we feel. And dangerously enough, in the last year, we've been desensitized. And I would agree with you that we have been desensitized. And I got to say it, like, hats off to those individuals being able to pull it off for as long as they have. Because to see the detriment and the impact on the individuals that I call very close to home, my loved ones, it has impacted. It has gotten into my home. The disease of the society has gotten into my home in a way that I'm passionate and have love for individuals that I love, their pursuit of their consciousness, their pursuit of humanity, their quest to get everything positive in this life, everything that I believe in have been affirmed with my own quest of independent research. I'm angry how it has impacted my life and the people that I love. But however, I try to change that and try to look at it, what could be the solution. And the solution always for me is hacking anything that gets in the way of honoring the inner child, the inner youthness, the spirit of ourselves. And oftentimes it's so much easier to target exactly the youth when they're very young because they're precious and they have life ahead of them. And when people get impacted with losses of children, we feel it more because we feel that their life has been robbed from experiencing life because they died so young. And or all these facets to all these political schemes and the consequences of those things on the impact of us, the common people, the civilians of these lands, that we all have in common is breath. And that's where I would love to challenge people, anyone that would negate the importance of a good quality breath, not in the actual doing of figuring out how you get a good breath or not, but what it means on a spiritual level to be alive, you know, and to honor that pursuit and to know that any mind quarrels, any mind stressors, any limitations are rightfully yours, because I would hope that everyone can agree that the impact globally in the last year and a half is that it was globally and we all suffered some sort of consequences. So we all automatically have some sort of, or should have some sort of empathy and compassion from the get-go with one another, because we all were affected some way, somehow. So I'm excited for the times now to be able to take the pain that we've all been feeling up to this point and say, hey, I understand. I understand. And if you want to explain, please do. I'm here. I'm a safety net that you can trust, that you can share this shit to me, and so that you can finally let go and let it finally go, so that we can reach a commonality now and find something that we can hold on together and fight for unanimously together. And that's what I viciously, because it's a very strong, very hard momentum to always get the gears going and remain passionate in. I have to say that, but it is meshed in also with hope to know that that's what the capacity of humanity can do, because we have done it. We have done it. You know, there's people are alive now. There's people who understand the consequences of their action and want to change. Like, all these epiphanies to accountability is coming up to the surface. And that's where I would, like, again, going back to what you said, creating a safety net that we've all kind of just allowed ourselves to just adapt in. I'm here to challenge it. I'm challenging your 9 to 5. Are you truly happy? Like the last episode, you brought that up with, you know, when you go home, you grab your beer and you're like sitting down on the sofa, turn on your television, and you're like, oh man, I honor myself. I deserve this beer. I deserve this moment of sitting in front of the television.
I give myself permission to have this beer.
Yeah.
When your boss gave you permission,
yeah,
the system gave you permission.
Exactly. I love that you said that, because that's exactly what it was. And where it's funny that we talked about it here earlier about me saying, well, wait a minute. I give myself permission to say that, no, I am not following your orders,
Right,
because
right.
I'm tired. I mean, this is actually what I want to do, and I should be able to do it. Whatever that is that I need to hack my brain to be able to say, wait a minute, I've been on a pattern, that I've been mind controlled, but wait, there's an identity within me that I'd like to actually hold on to, and it should be my righteous thing to say, I want to fucking hold on to that. And that's what I'm excited for people to wake up to that notion, because if at least people wake up to that, then boy, can we infiltrate change. Boy, can we infiltrate change to a higher degree, right? Now the quest is, what's going to be the peace? And that's the weird part. Is it, I think it's common nature to say that, to really assume that the 400 years or so, and eons of trouble, more assumingly 50,000 years, I think it is, the trajectory of patriarchal issues that have happened in this political climate of this world, is not going to be able to probably be fixed by next year. I can see that as not being the case. It would be not. I don't think it's very logical to assume that 10 years problems of the last 10 years are going to be fixed on a global aspect in the next 5 years. But people need to understand what power of spirit is, in my opinion. That the ether doesn't give a shit about fucking time. It doesn't care. It doesn't care what you did 5 minutes ago. It doesn't care what you think is going to happen in 5 minutes in time, in induced time. It doesn't care about the impact of 5 years ago, what you experienced and what you will experience in 5 years. It doesn't care, because the only way it operates is energy. And when people understand that you are an energy source, and you are a ruler to your own energy mechanism, how you operate within the system, then people may understand what sovereignty is all about. Being able to understand that this meme war is people trying to hijack some part of, again, using a system to get a consciousness going within yourself to make you question. What side of the receiving end are you going to be, is always the fucking question, because we're individuals, we're human, we have a brain technically on our own. I don't share my brain with anyone else. Even twins don't share the same brain, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we still have our own responsibility to ourselves. And that's such an interesting take to see where this big chaos of awakening, because of it being so impactful, it being in our hands or not, if we're consciously aware to chase it to see what the outcome of that is. So yeah, I would totally agree with you that, yeah, it would be illogical to think that in the next 5 to 10 years it's going to be so much better. But I have hope that whatever degree of bettering that it is a pendulum swindling forward swiftly, so fast, for the absolute outcome for the near future. And that's what I'm hoping, because that's the energy that I feel that keeps me alive, at least. It like
Right.
keeps me sane and passionate, and where I have to check my own ego at all times to give space to people that they feel that I heard them, that they listen to me, that they know my boundaries, that I honor their boundaries, that any mechanism shared is consent. You want to hear my readings with what I art, and the sense that I express, you come to my readings, you give consent to say, I'm listening to your reading, by the point of the reading beginning to the point of the reading ending. You know what I mean? Like, you give your consent to that. And that's the honoring of space I think we're going to awaken into. That the craftsmanship that is individualistic to us should be our authentic truth, no matter where the fuck we go in the society, and no one should have a right to condemn us for it. I think we are in a higher trajectory of being able to make a global impact on the idea of American culture, but it's hard to see that glimmering of light based on what a lot of people are right now currently feeling. They're still currently feeling the emotional pain of what has happened in the last year and a half. It's going to take some time for all those individuals to let go of the majority of what's anchoring them, to not feel uplifted with some idea of there is still some hope. You have to have a choice, though. It's like, you have to say, I'm hopeful, because if you're not chiming in into that wavelength, you're going to be left outstanding. And that's the idea of saying, hey, you have sovereignty, you got to make a decision. I know it's hard making a decision to choose light every day, but fuck, I'm here working too. You know, we got this. You know, like bump check, check in with me. You know, mental check, health check, all this. You know, like all these like comedical things that become entertaining to try to get a point across. But is it really? Should it be entertaining? No, it should be fucking simple. It should be
Right.
saying, you know, 9 to 5 is what I want to do, and if it's 9 to 5 that makes me happy, then I'm fucking happy, and I have a choice. I don't have to have. No one gave me permission because I chose this. If that's your right and that is what you want, that's for you, you know. But it's all individualistic. It's not for everyone. And that's the thing.
I guess kind of close out with I guess the 2 points were hope and hacking, right? Like those what it needs to
Good
be,
points.
right?
Yeah,
Hack
good
hack the
points.
system and be hopeful about the work you do and work you put in.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on your end?
No, that was good. That was good. It was a pleasure.
All right. Oh yeah, always a pleasure. So you can find us on IG at the Hike Lifestyle, the Hike Life. Always do that. You can find us on IG at the Hike Life, HIGKE. You can find me on IG at Gold's Conditioning. And you, Shari?
And you can find me on YouTube right now at _7, number 7 TH Goddess, where I provide some readings if you're into the energetically reading exchange, or you can follow me also on my IG page, which is also at _number 7 TH Goddess.
All right. Till next time, peace.